I want to tell you how that post came to exist, because from my side of the screen it didn't feel like a grenade tossed into the crowd, but more like a thought I'd been turning over for years. One of those ideas that forms quietly while you're juggling rockets, factories, code, and too many conversations at once. And then one day you write it out in a few blunt words, and the internet does what the internet does. So, when I wrote about womanhood being connected to having a womb, I wasn't trying to erase anyone or provoke outrage for sport. I was speaking from a place of biological definition, the same way an engineer talks about load-bearing structures or constraints in a system. Because biology, like physics, has boundaries whether we like them or not, and I've always believed that pretending constraints don't exist leads to bad outcomes. But what surprised me wasn't disagreement. I expect disagreement. It was the speed and ferocity with which the debate ignited, timelines filling with anger, pain, applause, condemnation, screenshots stripped of context, people telling me I was brave, people telling me I was cruel, people telling me to stay in my lane as if curiosity has lanes. And I watched it unfold in real time, thinking about how a single sentence can become a mirror that reflects everyone's fears and hopes back at them. Because for some, that statement felt like recognition of something they believe is obvious and foundational. And for others, it felt like a denial of their lived reality. And I get that. I really do. Even if I don't agree with every conclusion. And I kept thinking about how language has become a battlefield where definitions are no longer shared tools, but weapons. And how social media amplifies that by rewarding the loudest, most extreme interpretations, not the careful ones. So suddenly, I wasn't just Elon tweeting an opinion. I was cast as a symbol, a villain, a hero, a dinosaur, a truth teller. Sometimes all at once, depending on who was looking. And I thought about my own background. Growing up questioning authority, distrusting groupthink, believing that progress depends on being willing to say unpopular things and then refine them through argument, not silence them through fear. And I wondered when we decided that debate itself was violence, because from my perspective, acknowledging biological differences doesn't negate human dignity. It doesn't mean people shouldn't live how they feel they need to live. It means we should be precise about words while still being compassionate about people, and yet that nuance rarely survives the algorithm, so the conversation fractured into slogans, into hashtags, into demands for apology or defiance. And I chose not to walk it back because I don't think clarity should be sacrificed to comfort. But I also spent time listening, reading stories from people who felt hurt, asking myself where empathy fits into engineering-minded thinking. And the truth is, this whole episode reinforced something I've believed for a long time, which is that we're in a strange transitional moment as a civilization where technology has outpaced our ability to have slow, thoughtful conversations, where a post meant to define a concept can feel like an attack on identity, and where every public figure is expected to be either perfectly aligned with the prevailing narrative or cast out. And I'm not built for that kind of compliance. I'm built to ask what's real, what works, what's true, even when it's uncomfortable, and if telling that story means enduring a few more storms on social media, so be it, because progress has never come from silence. It's come from friction, from argument, from the messy process of figuring out how to live together in a world where facts, feelings, biology, and technology all collide in public view. When the noise finally settled enough for me to hear my own thoughts again, I started reflecting on what it means to speak in public now, because every sentence lives forever, frozen and replayed by people who don't know you, don't care to know you, and often don't want to understand intent. And I realized that part of the anger wasn't really about me or that definition at all. It was about fear. Fear that the ground is shifting too fast, fear that language is being rewritten without consensus, fear that saying the wrong thing can cost you your livelihood or your reputation, and fear on the other side that words can erase hard-won recognition and safety. And social media compresses all of that into a few characters and a reaction button. So instead of dialogue, we get digital trench warfare. And I've always believed that if an idea can't survive criticism, it probably isn't strong enough to guide policy or culture, which is why I didn't delete the post or hide behind PR language, because authenticity matters more to me than approval, even when authenticity is messy and misunderstood. And I kept thinking about engineering again, how systems fail when feedback loops are ignored, how suppressing dissent creates pressure that eventually explodes, and how societies, like machines, need open channels to self-correct, not enforced unanimity. And I'm aware that people assign motives to me, that they say I do this for attention or power or control, but the reality is simpler and less dramatic. I talk because I think ideas should be tested in the open, not whispered behind closed doors. And yes, I have a platform. And yes, that comes with responsibility. But responsibility doesn't mean silence. It means engaging, honestly, even when it costs you. And I also thought about my kids, about the world they're growing up in, about whether they'll be allowed to ask basic questions without being labeled or attacked. And that matters to me more than trending positively for a day. So, if part one of this story was about biology and definitions, part two is really about freedom of thought, about whether we still believe adults can disagree without destroying each other. And I don't pretend to have all the answers, I never have, but I refuse to accept a future where curiosity is treated like cruelty and clarity is treated like hate, because that kind of future doesn't build rockets or cities or solutions. It builds resentment and silence, and I'd rather be in the middle of a loud, uncomfortable conversation than preside over a quiet collapse of honest discourse, even if that means taking the heat, even if that means being misunderstood. Because history doesn't remember who stayed safe. It remembers who spoke when speaking was hard. By the time part 3 of this story unfolds, I'm no longer surprised by the cycle, the outrage, the think pieces, the declarations that this moment proves everything someone already believed about me. Because once you've lived through enough of these storms, you start to see the pattern, the initial shock, the moral sorting, the escalation, the fatigue, and then the quiet absorption of the idea into the broader conversation. And I started thinking about how quickly we forget that disagreement doesn't equal malice, that a definition isn't a verdict on someone's worth, and that intent matters even when impact is debated. And I thought about how strange it is that we trust people to build companies, vote, raise children, and shape culture, Yet we increasingly don't trust them to hear an idea they dislike without imploding. And that's not a sustainable operating system for a civilization. So I kept speaking, not louder but steadier, reminding myself that leadership isn't about being loved. It's about being honest enough to endure discomfort. And I noticed something interesting as time went on. Beneath the shouting, there were quieter messages, people saying they were relieved someone said what they were thinking but were afraid to say out loud. Others saying they still disagreed with me but appreciated that the conversation wasn't shut down. And that's when it hit me that this wasn't really about me defining womanhood. It was about whether we still allow reality, biology, and subjective experience to exist in the same room without one being declared forbidden, because complexity doesn't fit neatly into slogans, and yet complexity is where truth usually lives, and I don't claim to own that truth. I just refuse to pretend it's simple when it isn't. And if there's anything this whole episode reinforced for me, it's that the future will be shaped not by people who avoid controversy, but by people who can walk into it without losing their humanity, who can say, I believe this while still saying, I see you. And that balance is harder than launching a rocket sometimes, because it requires resisting both applause and condemnation, and standing in that uncomfortable middle ground where thinking actually happens. And I know this story won't end neatly. There won't be a final tweet that resolves everything. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is to keep the conversation open long enough for society to mature past reflexive outrage and into something more resilient, something capable of holding disagreement without tearing itself apart. And if my role in that process is to absorb some of the heat, to be misunderstood, to be criticized, then I accept that, because progress has always demanded a tolerance for friction, and silence, no matter how polite, has never moved the world forward.